All right, so we're going to talk about what great personal trainers always do. Now, as you've already learned, I just always double check, make sure our recording is working. It is, so we're off and running here. I'm going to move my screen a little closer to the corner, just try not to cover up any text. So this is what it's really about, separating the certified from folks who are actually qualified to be the best in their field, certainly the best in their area, and if you want, hopefully the best in the world. So the number one factor that I've found that separates the great trainers from the rest is how often they're investing in pursuing their continuing education. Now, as you learned from one of the previous sets of slides in that previous talk, is that pursuing your continuing education is not just about reading articles. Hopefully you should be consuming all the free articles that you could possibly find online. I've written a ton, and there's lots of amazing authors out there to check out. Buying books, there's certainly a lot of good information that you can gain from watching YouTube and Instagram. Yeah, I know there's a lot of bad information out there as well. That's not up to me to tell you which is good, which is bad. I can certainly vouch for the information that I put on my own social media channels, but you're smart enough to tell the difference. But it's also going beyond that and actually investing in it. Like I said, put your money where your mouth is, because you can appreciate that way versus depreciate. So investing in yourself. And again, that's what separates the best trainers from the rest. How often they are thinking about training, thinking about how they can get better, and learning about how they can get better. So that brings me to this right here. So what we're going to talk about is what I call the 3 tiers of personal trainers. So if you see this sort of target here on the right, it's really 3 concentric circles. So the trainers in tier 3, which we'll talk about last, they're inside the population of the largest population of trainers, of all trainers, which would consume the whole circle. So 1 is the people on the outer layer, but it's the largest group of trainers. Tier 2 is a smaller group of trainers within the population of trainers. And tier 3 trainers, those are the elite. That's the smallest population within, the smallest amount within the trainer population. So the question to ask yourself while we're going through this is, do my actions as a fitness professional from a continuing education perspective, meaning how often am I investing in my continuing education, match my professional goals? So if you want to be the best, at least the best for your client, if not one of the best trainers in your area, if not one of the best in the world, how often are you actually investing in your continuing education beyond just simply consuming some free things at your convenience that you can find online? So let's talk about tier 1 trainers. This is the largest population of trainers, as we said. And really what I have said here is that these trainers tend to get most of, if not all of, their training information, this would be their continuing education, from mainstream resources like professional athletes and fitness celebrities, who are notoriously full of pseudoscience and unreliable information. These are the same trainers who often just do continuing education to get CECs, and they're basically looking for the quickest and easiest way to acquire CECs to keep up that darn certification. And they definitely tend to be prone to digging up, trendy exercises and different workout ideas. To sometimes they'll pull it that the day before they train their clients, just to get new ideas to push their clients, right? Now, if they do spend time learning about their education or in training, they tend to be in that fitness hobbyist category. We talked about this in the previous set of slides, previous talk. They tend to prioritize their own hobbies, their own training interests. Maybe they're really into powerlifting. Maybe they're really into Olympic lifting or some other form of training, primal movements, right? So I'm not downing any of those things, but if you're spending all of your extra resources and time on learning that, and you can only use it with a small subset of your clients, then tend to fall in the fitness hobbyist category at that point. So tier 2 trainers. This is a smaller population of trainers now. And these folks spend more time uh, and resources, money, on their continuing education. So at least more time and money than the tier one trainers. And therefore, these trainers tend to have a better idea of, they tend to be more up to speed on what's going on beyond just what you see mainstream celebrities and magazines talking about. And they tend to have a better idea of the relevant and fitness information. And they tend to have a better idea of the reliable training resources, the ones that have more scientifically founded, principle based training information. I used to joke that when I was, long before I ever became a continuing educator, I was obsessed with going to conferences and reading books and buying, I'm going to date myself now, buying VHS tapes and, of course, DVDs. And every time I would meet other trainers, and this is even when I was 20, 21 years old, I had a whole collection of VHS and DVDs and books at that point, and already been to multiple conferences, probably 10 conferences by that time. I would ask other trainers, and I'd go, have you ever heard of this person or that person? I was naming some of the bigger names at the time. And if they didn't know, that was kind of my door test. So if you don't know what the door test is, just look it up. It's from a movie called A Bronx Tale. That was my trainer door test. And I was shocked to know how many trainers had no clue who these folks were. And I figured if you were paying any attention beyond just free information that's out there, you would know who these people were. You probably are thinking about some of those people that nowadays who would fit that bill. So this is kind of what I mean. People in tier two, they would pass that door test. At least most of them would. So, and these folks tend to often attend live events and purchase informational products, continuing education products, whenever they can afford it. Obviously, that's going to depend on, how much money we're making, our overhead, that sort of things. And they get it for purely education purposes, not just to fill CECs and check the box and keep that darn certification going, right? And then in their free time, they often enjoy looking at different training articles and blogs and possibly research studies or looking at research reviews. So now we get to the tier three clients. This is the smallest population of trainers, and this is your A team. So these are your rare trainers. They're basically obsessed with their continuing education, and they're obsessed with being the best trainers they possibly can be, not just for personal pride, but because they care about their clients that much. Now, everybody says they're passionate. Everybody says that they care. But again, you can do a lot of this, but what do your actions show, right? Training is no different than anything in life. You could say all the right things, but do you have skin in the game? Do you put your money where your mouth is? Now, I often get asked, because I have the honor of sharing conference stages all around the world with some of the best people in the fitness and nutrition world. And I've spent about a decade of my career so far having the privilege of doing that. And that has given me a pretty good idea of what prerequisites of what do all these, some of the best in the world, the folks have in common, right? Whether they be someone who's really made it far in the exercise research realm or in just a practical training realm or the nutrition realm. I'm talking about the people who are just get a lot of recognition or have done really well as sports performance coaches, and they all fall into this tier three category. They may have different approaches, but when they get together, they're nonstop talking shop, whether it be with other coaches or their staff, and they're just obsessed with their continuing education. It is a hobby for them. It's something that they're happy to do on a Friday and Saturday night when everybody else is out at the bar drinking margaritas, right? They may be at home with a margarita while they're reading a book or watching a talk like this. So continuing education is excitable to them. And also, I'm going to add something that I don't have here on this slide. It's not just getting education from other sources, other coaches and trainers out there, other colleagues. It's also they spend a lot of time thought organizing and self-reflecting and self-scouting better ways to do things and asking themselves, how can I do this better? Looking at programs, re-looking at programs. What can we change? What can we cut out? How can we trim the fat from this and make it more streamlined? They're really constantly obsessed with everything about them. And of course, they're constantly reading buying books, courses. Basically, they're spending every extra penny that they can afford on top of whatever extra time they've got to be absolute best they can be. So again, I started with a question, and now I'm going to finish with a little series of questions to ask yourself now that you've seen these three tiers, right? Which circle am I in based on how much time and resources I'm currently investing in improving my knowledge and skill set? Of course, it's basically you do your best with what you have. So how much money you can spend on your continuing education is going to be relevant to how much your income and other overhead. I get that. But is it a priority to you? Okay. And are you actually investing in that? Are you saving up for it if you need to do that? Then what circle should I be in if I'm trying to be the best trainer to my clients? What circle do I need to be in if I'm trying to be the best trainer in my area? And what circle do I need to be in if I want to become one of the leaders in education and get recognition? Not because that's what you just want recognition, but because your work speaks for itself and your talent brings attention, and that's what brings recognition. You already know the answer. That's the tier 3. So one of the things that may be able to help you, I'm biased, but my flagship continuing education resource for trainers is this Practical Program Design Mastery. So you see the website there, practicalprogrammastery.com. It is the absolute best I have to offer. And it will tell you everything you need to know to be about the best trainer in your area, and definitely one of the best in the world. At least it's the best that I've got. You'll see my systems in and out for training general population clients. So I appreciate you checking this out. I hope it was helpful.